Hi, my name's Robert Seals, and today we're going to make a piece of metal art. And what we're doing right now is choosing the metal, and this metal is all metal from water tanks, old water tanks that were rusting out. And I go take them out, we bring them here, and we use this lovely rusted metal to give us a patina that we're going to get on today's finished piece. We're going to make a small whale from start to finish. So we're going to take this down to the shop and get started. What we were doing there was knocking off some of the loose, thick rust, getting down so we can draw our item on there. Okay, today I've made a pattern. This is also referred to as a template. It's a good idea before you start cutting metal to have an idea of whether it was a flower or a lion or whatever. I've been making a lot of marine life lately, so we're going to go with that. And also when I teach people, I usually start with a piece like this because it's not real difficult because it's a simple shape. So this is a pattern of a humpback whale. I'm going to set it on here. I kind of look at my material and choose a nice spot. This is the outer fin. And before we get too far, if you're ever doing metal work, make sure you wear safety glasses, gloves when you're cutting and pounding, and ear protection. And anybody around you working or helping should have the safety gear on as well. So what I'm going to do is just trace this out on here. This is chalk that they sell in welding shops. It draws on metal quite nicely. And sometimes I improvise a little bit from the pattern. In this case, the tail, I'm going to exaggerate it a little more. Once again, this could be a flower or a lizard or anything. This fin I'm drawing now is on the other side of the whale. This fin will be added on to the side that's made to view. There we go. And I'll put this fin over here. Once again, you don't have to stick with your exact pattern, or you could just draw freehand right on the steel. But I found with students it's better if they have some kind of plan. Okay, that completes our drawing process. So we've drawn the piece on the metal, and now it's time to cut. Today I'm using what is a modern day torch. It's called a plasma cutter, and it's basically electricity and compressed air. So it takes an air compressor and electricity. The machine is over there, and it's all done with this, and this is the ground, and it cuts very nicely through paint, through rusty metal, and it's designed for that. It also cuts stainless steel. I'm going to turn a fan on here to blow out some of the fumes that might come up from this. So I'm going to start cutting. Okay, there's our piece cut out. Now we're going to go to forming. We're going to start our forming process, and I'm going to explain some of the tools. They're very basic. These are a lot of hammers that I've had over the years. Some were given to me, some I bought, standard hammers. But if you notice, if you look closely, hardly any of them are normal shape. This used to be a flathead ball peen hammer, and now it's been ground with a grinder to give it a certain shape, to do edges and curves. You know, here we have a very sharp point for certain things you'll see us use. Here's another one that's round on one end and then curved this way on this end for different forming problems. So anyway, I'm going to start by shaping the mouth, and sometimes it helps to draw a little target on here. So I'm going to work this area here. I found that it's easier to do this first for the whale. Also made this little die. These are things that I've made for giving different curves on different things, like narrow for little sharp curves, like maybe putting a curve on a fin or something, and then wider for making larger diameter curves. And we will also be using this vise over here, so we can adjust the distance. The greater the distance, the more curve it will get us. So if we were doing bigger pieces, like over here, like this salmon, we could get a big curve by taking it wider out. And you get small curves by bringing it in closer. So that's something that I have made, and we'll be using that later on. Start forming the mouth. Okay, that'll be good enough for our start. Now I'm going to draw some lines on here. This is helpful when you're learning. And this is kind of where I'm going to be pounding my first curved edges on the piece. I'm going to work with the outside edge before I do anything in the middle. And that, because if I turn it into a channel, then it's easier to keep it straight as it becomes distorted from all the pounding later in the process. So I'm going to kind of follow these lines as we proceed down the piece. I'm going to come over to this vise. Side. Notice I've switched hands. I've learned to pound with both hands to balance my body out. And you let the hammer do the work. Don't force it into the metal. It'll wear you out. You let the hammer, if the hammer's not getting it done, then you choose a heavier hammer. So this hammer it's a little harder to lift, but I don't have to push too hard. Notice too, when I'm pounding, where the piece is placed is very important. It's not, if I'm pounding out over the vise, then it wouldn't be shaping it. So I have it just on the edge, so my line is in the middle. So it allows the metal to go down. That's very important. Sometimes beginning people tend to pound out here, and it wouldn't do you much good. So we'll keep going here. I'm going to switch hammers here. I want to get a sharper bend back in the tail area. So I'll come over here on this homemade forming die. And maybe I'll go with this one. And I'll go to this one as well. Now you can see all the distortion that's happening. So what are we going to do about that? See? So the next phase is to flatten it out. And we'll be doing this process back and forth a few times. We should do some shaping and then some straightening. If you try to do it all at once, it gets so distorted and twisted that it's very difficult to keep control of your shape, because it is a compound curve. That means it's curving this way and it's curving this way, and metal doesn't like to do that. So there's a process here. So now I'm going to use a few items, some clamps I'll be using. First I'm going to try to knock this down. Different hammer, a little more weight. I'm going to hit right in this area. So now I'll clamp it down with these clamps that I've modified. You see I've welded on an old piece of pipe to help conform to the curve, because everything we make here is curved. So I'm going to, when you clamp this down, and this process is the same if we're making a whale that's 5 feet long, or any of the other critters that we make. Same process, just bigger and sometimes bigger hammers, sometimes not. Same tools right here. I could make almost everything that we will be showing you. Now I'm going to take a flat normal end and I'm going to work these edges down, because since they're curved, once I hit them down, they'll stay. It's like we formed a channel, so the metal will behave, so to speak. This fin here is actually on the other side of the animal. So what we want to do is make a very nice line right here, like right in this area, and another one right here, because this tail fin is also on the far side of the animal. This fin we will eventually bring out more toward us. We'll take a sharp hammer and set it in here. Now, as you can see, the piece is it's kind of behaving now. It's relatively flat, and I'm going to knock this fin down a little bit. I'm going to put a little curve on this fin. So that one, let me knock this one down. So this one is going away on the other side. This one is kind of on your side. So what you're doing is a form of relief, actually. So it's obviously not a total dimensional animal. What I found out is people have more wall space than they do for full dimensional pieces, and also to make a dimensional whale might take you 2 days versus this project we can have finished in, well, if you're a beginner, you know, an hour or 2 hours, and much quicker as you get more experienced with the tools. And once again, the tools are simple. None of these were purchased. They were all just a grinder, a simple grinder, wire brushing, and you'll see all the tools today. You can actually get a small welder that you can plug in your garage. It doesn't have to be a big machine that can do all this kind of welding to make small, thinner metal objects. So now we're going to go back to forming. I'm going to widen my vise a little bit. That's the nice thing about this, it's adjustable. So otherwise I need a whole lot of these forming dies. And I'm going to go with this hammer, kind of a medium weight. I think it's 2.5 pounds. And I'm going to work on these middle areas. And I'll be running back and forth like this. And now once again, I'm hitting over the hole, not over the vise, because that'll do nothing for me. So you always want to remember where your target is. I'm kind of going back and forth, then I move over, back and forth, right along. Once again, letting the hammer do the work. I'm not forcing the hammer, I'm letting it drop. I'm going to switch hands. Okay. We picked up more distortion again. We always want to try to get it back to somewhat flat. Now I'm going to work around here on these edges and kind of force the piece back down. That's pretty good. I'm going to work with this tail. You notice how nice the rusty metal is for the patina, we call it, the textured patina that we will get after we do our final wire brushing and things. So I'm going to now do a little shaping on the pectoral fin. This will be welded on in this area. But first I want to give it some, they're thicker in the front and the leading edge, so I'm going to give it a little bit of that. Now it's relatively flat. I like to give them a little bit of curve this way. When they come down, they kind of, the whales, humpback whales do that. They're a very dramatic animal. Little curve like that. That'll be very nice. I'm going to cut with a mini grinder with a very thin blade. I'm going to cut in the mouth line. The humpback whales have an extraordinary mouth and eating system. And their mouth comes down, it drops almost into where the leading edge of the pectoral fin is. So I'm just going to draw it down like that. And there'll be an eye here. And I'll clamp it down. It's a little different style of clamp here. Now I'm going to grind this line in. You can see by running my grinder not just straight in but at a flat angle, I gave kind of a representation of the humpback whale has a baleen in here, and sometimes you can kind of see it. It's a filtering system, kind of like this, where they take in a big gulp of water and with krill in it, and then they squish the water out through this fibrous stuff like a comb, and it keeps the krill inside and the water squirts out. It looks kind of like that all along here. So anyway, it just kind of gives an effect of the baleen in there. Just one of my little things I do. I also don't bother with a lot of my work cleaning up the edge with a grinder. I kind of like the melted edge, and the melted edge is also, it's a little more forgiving. It's not sharp, and once you start working with a grinder, then you can wind up with very sharp edges. So you need to really smooth it off. You know, once you get into the grinding. Okay, we're going to move over to welding now. Brushing on here before I weld this fin on, because I can't get in here after that. So I'm going to do some of this first. Now we've wire brushed this area where this pectoral fin is going to go on, and I'm going to weld it on. And the welder I'm using is a wire feed. It's a MIG welder, which is, it has an inert gas in it. And once again, this could be a small welder about the size of this one right here. These are about $500 if you ever wanted to get one and have a small setup in your garage or something. And it runs on 110 power. I use a bigger machine because some of my stuff gets big and thicker, and so you need a machine like that. But these little machines these days work very, very good. You can get the little, small plasma cutters, and that have the air compressor built in them, and you can get the little MIG welder and a few hammers, and you're all set. So anyway, I'm going to tack on this. I'm going to lay a few, I'm going to put the eye on. I'm going to lay a few, their nodules that they have on the fins and up on the top of the mouth. So I'm going to do all that now. So I kind of like the fin out like that. A little darker shield for the welding here. You always want to tack it and then check, see if you like where it is. You can tweak it a little bit still. I put a little angle on it, once again, to accent two sides of the animal. Now I'm going to weld on a hanger on the back. For that I use some old scrap pieces of strap. In this case, it could be a scrap piece off of your metal that you made the whale out of. And I'm gonna find the balance point right about there and put this in the middle of it. Now I'm going to form the edges of this down so if somebody has it hanging on the wall, it doesn't slip off of the screw. And I always check to see if it's down beneath the plane. See, it's a little high, so I'll knock that down. Put a hammer in here like this and knock this down. And I'll put a little tack on those. And now, the very important thing is we're going to do some barnacles all up around the mouth, around the fins here. There's a little bit back here on whales. And the barnacles tend to grow wherever the food is. That means where the food comes in and where it goes out. So I kind of have a secret for that I will share with you. Is to make a smooth weld, MIG welders has a gas in it. I'm going to come over and turn the gas off. Okay? Leaving the welder on, what's going to happen is I'm going to get a very crude, bubbly weld. It's very unacceptable in welding terms and in the welding school. You'd probably flunk the course if you welded like this in a class. But it gives you a wonderful barnacle texture. So turn off the gas, but you do not do that when you do your structural welding, where I want a control of the bead is with the gas on. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Okay, now we're going to go back over to the wire brushing and clean it up. repaint this one. So here I'm putting on a little bit of Rust-Oleum Clear. You can buy it at any hardware store. And it holds up very well. Or you can just let it rust and it'll get a nice even brown patina with all that nice texture from the rust. That piece of metal took about 60 years to get that texture. Look at that. Here you can see a hammerhead that we just finished, out of the same kind of metal. In this case, I painted it. So it all formed the same way as the same process you just saw. Formed all the edges, made the fins separately, these two, formed the outer edge of the body, and formed the inner part of the body with the bigger, wider forming die, and then form the fins and weld them on, and weld a couple of hangers on the back, and you got pretty much anything that you can visualize, you can make. So here's our piece finished, and I'm going to hang it on the wall here, our little hanger that we welded on. It's had a little bit of clear coat sprayed on it, and you can adjust it here if you want it running up or down. That's why I make the hanger a little long. In this case, I'm going to balance it. But there it is. That's what it looks like finished on the wall. Now you can do this at home. We say, try this at home.